I'm Nicole Monroe, and I'll be a sophomore at EKU this fall. For as long as I can remember, my parents have been divorced, and my mom raised my brother and I got to see my dad and my stepmom and little sister for every other weekend. It wasn't always easy growing up with parents who weren't together, but it was all I ever knew, and I never really had anything to compare it to, so that's just how life was. Growing up, I was always the good girl. I compared myself to my brother a lot and just saw how he got in trouble and I didn't. And I just really built like my identity on that. I was kind of quiet and really shy, and I also had high expectations for myself in school, and I expected to make straight A's. My first memorable experience with church was when I was in 7th grade. One of my best friends started going to this Pentecostal church, and she dragged me along a couple of times, and it was through those experiences at that church that I realized I was led to believe that Christians were just crazy and brainwashed, and I wanted nothing to do with church for a while, for a couple of years until I went to high school. And freshman year was just a really hard time for me because I was going to a school where I didn't really know a lot of people, and I didn't have a lot of friends, and so I was really lonely. But God used that time to break down those walls that I had built up, and He placed me into a church where there was a group of kids my age that truly cared about me, and I got involved in that church a lot. So we're going to fast forward a year to a summer camp, and I was sitting there listening to the same gospel I've been hearing for a year, but something clicked. Up until then, I just thought that being good and making straight A's would make me acceptable to God, but that's not what the Bible was teaching me. It says that God is holy, and compared to Him, I fell short of that every day because of what I did. And no matter how hard I tried, I still messed up, even though I tried to hide it and make it seem like I had everything under control. And the punishment for those mess-ups in my life is an eternity without God. And it was only through Jesus, God's holy Son, that I could be saved from eternal loneliness, because He humbled Himself and came down to earth and lived the perfect life that I never could. And since God is just and holy, He demands punishment for sin, and that's what I deserved by God's standard. But that night I realized that He chose to sacrifice His life for mine by dying on the cross and by taking that punishment of my sin. And I accepted that truth, and I accepted Jesus as my Savior. And I didn't know what God was going to do, and I didn't know what living like a Christian was like. But what I did know was following Jesus would get me into heaven. And since then, Jesus has shown me things that it's just difficult to put into words. He's opened up so many doors for me to share His gospel. And I do that just because of the love that He's put into me for the people that don't know Him yet. And He led me to Costa Rica for 10 months straight after high school. And it was there my relationship with God just really developed. He built on the foundation that I started early in high school. And I just really fell in love with Him during that year. He showed me what it was like to have fellowship with real Christians and just to worship Him. And most of all, He showed me that He was a God of this world and not just of the United States where I lived. And then coming to college, I got involved with Crew, and then ended up here in Charleston on summer project. And here He's just shown me that there's different ways to share the gospel. It could be going up to someone and telling them about Jesus, but it can also be living the life, like working McDonald's 40 hours a week, and it just being completely stressful, but still living their life, and people noticing a difference in your life, and that God can work through that in so many ways. And He's also taught me to open up to people on a much deeper level than I ever have, and it's not very easy for me to open up, but it's so worth it. And He's taught me it's okay to not be okay, because He's the one who's in control, and it's not me. And all I have to do is love Him, and then I obey, and then He's got it all in His hands.